All right, Mr. Lucas here with Deputy Thompson to ask some questions. He's been gracious enough to give us some of his time today. So Deputy Thompson, our first question is, can you explain what probable cause and reasonable suspicion are?
Sure. So reasonable suspicion is, it's before probable cause. We have a hunch that a crime may have been committed, and probable cause is one step above that, where we kind of have evidence or proof that crime was committed.
Number two, how does the warrant process work and how long does it take to get a warrant?
So when we file charges on a crime and we can't locate the suspect, we will put a warrant out for their arrest. So after that, we take the charges to the prosecutor's office. They file the paperwork for the warrant. We walk the paperwork over to the court, give them that paperwork, and then they issue the warrant for the suspect. And once that stuff's entered, it's usually same day that if you run their information, they'll come back, they have a warrant for their arrest.
Okay, wow. So does that take just like a few hours? Or?
Yeah, it's a really quick process.
What happens when you get pulled over? And some questions along with that, like what documents do you need? How should you act so you don't appear threatening? And is there anything you need to tell the officer?
So obviously, we like to see driver's license, proof of insurance, and registration. With today's technology, we can run your license plate and it comes back to the registered owner and lets us know if your tag is expired or not. So have, again, driver's license, insurance. A lot of insurance is on your phones now, so make sure you know the password to your app for your insurance, and make sure your insurance card is up to date because a lot expired. And then just be normal, be calm, talk to them, professionally, be kind and courteous, and we'll do the same back. And just, if you haven't been pulled over before, it's not a huge deal. Don't freak out. I know a lot of juveniles and go cry, and they'll, that doesn't mean you're not getting a ticket if you cry, just to let you know. So just be courteous and professional.
Is there anything you'd need to tell the officer, like if you had a weapon in the vehicle or something like that?
So the law changed recently where you can carry a firearm, you don't have to tell them. But if you have a CCW and we run your license plate, it will come back that you have that CCW and what county it's out of. So, I mean, on our behalf, it's just a common courtesy now. If you're carrying a firearm on you, just let us know and keep your hands on the steering wheel. And some officers might say, get out of the car, and we're allowed to ask you to step out of the car. That's a law there, case law. If we ask you that, you have to comply to us. And they might say, can I just have your firearm for the duration of this traffic stop, so they feel safe. And I just suggest you comply to them, and everything goes smooth.
So if an officer asks you to get out of the car, you have to.
You have to, and if you refuse, we can make you get out of the car, which we don't want to do.
How can you politely refuse consent to an officer if they ask to search something?
So if we don't have, probable cause to search your vehicle and they ask to search it, you don't have to let them. Just say no, thank you. At that point, they may call a canine in to do a sweep for drugs. And if the canine alerts in the vehicle, that's our probable cause, so we can get in the vehicle. So at that point, you don't have a reason to say no.
Could you explain how the whole Miranda Rights things works with remaining silent and everything?
So we'll only read Miranda to you when you're under arrest, and we're going to ask you questions. So if we haven't placed you under arrest, we don't have to read Miranda. But if you are placed under arrest and we're going to ask you questions related to the crime you committed, we will read you the Miranda right. You can refuse to answer any questions at any time and say you want a lawyer present.
Is it okay if they ask if they're being detained or arrested if they're confused about what might be going on?
Of course, you can ask us anything. Obviously, if you're pulled over on a traffic stop, you're being detained at that time. You're not free to leave. And they usually let you know pretty quick if you're going to be under arrest.
So in general, how can you know when police can arrest you and if an officer is abusing their authority?
That's a great question. Usually on traffic offenses, you're not really getting arrested. It's more of like a crime has been committed. It's like a domestic or an assault, things of that nature. We have a lot of discretion when it comes to making arrest, depending on the situation. Preferred, like if you're in domestic in the state of Ohio, the preferred is arrest, one or both parties. So, I mean, it's kind of a tricky question because we don't have to say, yeah, I'm going to arrest you after this. It might just come to the point where we gather enough information in our investigation where we arrest you. But at any time when you're talking to law enforcement, you're usually being detained because we're conducting an investigation.
Okay. Now we got some questions from students here, and students, I'll tell you, if we didn't get to your question, you can always go up to Deputy Thompson and ask him. So the first one is, what are things you consider suspicious to make you search a student's car?
So, under the school conduct, I can't search a car for no reason. There has to be a crime that was committed or something illegal that was found on the student. So, if I'm just walking by a vehicle and I look into it, things that are suspicious to me are obviously like vape cartridges, right? Or, caps from alcohol lids. I'm not going to get too far into the drug stuff, but at times people use the chore boy when they're doing drugs, and they use pipes and glasses. So, yeah, those are things to look for.
And so if you see something in plain view, obviously that's your probable cause. You can search it then. Is it legal to flash your lights to warn someone of a cop up ahead?
So we recently researched this, and it is not illegal, but it's frowned upon because as you're driving, you don't know who you're flashing your lights at. That person may be drunk, they may have a warrant, they may have just committed a crime. So you letting them know we're up ahead can kind of damper our job.
How do you decide if you're going to let people off with a warning or not?
That's off your discretion again. So I can tell you that the nicer you are, the more you comply. In my experience, the more likely you are to get off with a warning. And based on how fast you're going, what you were doing, things like that. And a big part of it is if you've had prior tickets recently. Because if you've had a ticket a month ago for speeding and we got you speeding again, you obviously didn't learn your lesson, right? So you might get another ticket. But if your first time, being pulled over for speeding, we might give you a warning, just let you know, hey, slow down.
What's one thing firefighters are better than at cops? And give an example.
So firefighters are great at a couple things. The first thing is taking naps on the job. They're a lot better than we are at that. And then probably cooking, because they're, they hang around a lot, play a lot of basketball, and they eat a lot. So probably cooking and napping, I would say.
What are your least favorite cases to deal with?
Honestly, it's the civil calls we get sent to. It's basically two adults being children, and we have to be the peer mediator and be an adult, even though they're older than us. Those are the worst calls, because you're kind of like a babysitter at that point.
Do you like donuts? And if so, what's your favorite flavor? We got this question a lot.
I love donuts. That's where I get my power from, is donuts. I eat one every morning. And I'm kind of a basic guy. I just like a glazed donut or just, maple icing, nothing cream filled or anything like that.
There you have it, guys. On your way in, Tim Hortons, you want to help Deputy Thompson out, you got his order. Last question, are there any crazy stories you've had of something you've experienced on the job?
There's a lot of crazy stories. Trying to think of one I can tell.
Sure, you got a lot to choose from.
Why don't we just leave it at, if you guys are watching this and you want to hear a story, come talk to me, and I will think about it from now on, that story that's appropriate I can tell you guys.
There you go.
So,
all right. Thank you so much, Deputy Thompson.
yeah,
We
thank you,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Yep.